Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Conversations with Kids in Cyber, where we have conversations with professionals and experts in the field who are dealing with the everyday of children and digital wellbeing. Today I am joined with guest Danie Loggerenberg. I think I'm close enough to that.
Well done.
Would you like to introduce yourself, Danie, and what it is you do and how you get into your role of the CEO?
Okay, so my name is Danie van Loggerenberg. I'm based in South Africa. I am what the staff call me in any way, the CEO of the National Centre for Child Protection. We cover the entire South Africa, and we also look at international trends so that we can better safeguard our children in the country. Because as you know, when something happens in one country, it can't, especially if it's something completely, I want to say silly, because I came from a school now where we spoke about TikTok trends. Then it kind of just goes over into one country, into another country, because the world that me as a child used to think is so small is actually very big, although small, but it's very big. And the children of today have access to the same things we've got access to. So there's no more privacy or privileged information that is kept aside from children. So that's why I do what I do.
I noticed, I think I seen you had a post on LinkedIn the other day there that you're going into the mental health side of things. You started up that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So what we've realized is, as much as we want to speak about child protection, and child protection for me in any case is always about preventing what's going to happen next. It's a kind of a safeguarding role in the sense of these are the trends, this is the dangers, and please be careful. What we've realized with time is what happens to the child that has now done these things. They've sent inappropriate photos, they've made contact and become friends with people that they don't know. Where does it leave them? And that's why we've decided to open up a mental health side as well, which we've always had, but we've now kind of grown it into something a little bigger. So it's not only limited to kids anymore, because a lot of young parents, a lot of parents, and a lot of adults still deal with childhood trauma. And because they still need to deal with childhood trauma, they have never actually left that behind. So in their hearts and in their minds, there's still a little bit of child that they carry with them, because the child was hurt, not the grown-up, and we need to offer them assistance. And as much as I love speaking to children and helping them, we did realize there's a lot more that needs to be done, because that parent that did not deal with childhood trauma, obviously then parents, and that impacts their parenting skills, their parenting side, and that impacts their children. And then those children again have interaction with other children. And again, as I said earlier, the world is not what it used to be. So now children are doing things, and they're doing things that they're unsure of. They've got parents that are either, because they grew up in very strict households, are now very strict, and their kids are now acting out in different ways, and then their kids get hurt. And they are normally, how do we assist them? But we need to assist not only the child that has already been hurt, but also the grown-up, the teacher, the parent, the grandparents that have not dealt with their childhood trauma.
That's really interesting that you tackle both the parents and the children. I think it is especially interesting that you have now branched off into this mental health, because like we say, we talk about kids being online, what they're exposed to, and there's very much a focus on how do we protect them. We look at Meta, we look at all the different companies, and we say, well, you have to safeguard, you have to do this, but what actually happens to the children who have already been exposed, have already been through trauma from a young age online? Do you see quite a lot of young children that have been exposed to things online? Because sometimes you wonder if they're being desensitized because they're seeing things from a really, really young age. And I suppose what we would find is disturbing or scary, you wonder if it's not so much to them because they've been exposed to it really, really young. Is it their normal in a sense? I mean, I've spoken to hundreds of students at schools, and I've asked them, put your hands up if you have ever seen anything that you find that maybe upset you a little bit. And a lot of them put their hands up, and I says, did you tell a parent? And they're all just like, no. They just brush it off, and you think, well, does it affect them, or is it just becoming the norm?
So you said that, and the word you use is actually the perfect word, desensitized. So they are completely desensitized. So I've been in child protection for 15 years. So many years ago, we'd go to a school and we speak about smoking cigarettes, and we'd show them, the lungs in a jar and how black they are and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't work anymore, because that picture is nothing compared to the things that they see on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you name it, so Snapchat and all of that. So they are completely desensitized. Then what we have to remember, and I think sometimes parents forget this, you can be the best parent in the world and you can limit your child's screen time, or they don't have a cell phone, because a lot of parents tell me, my child will never have a cell phone. Okay, does your child know about TikTok? Yes, they do. So they're sitting with somebody else watching their phone. So as much as you protect, you're in complete denial because your child is still being exposed. The difference now is, because your child is now doing things that they shouldn't be doing, because you've already banned cell phones at home, they're not going to go to you to share that information, like you said. So we do the same. We speak at schools, and then the kids say the weirdest things, and then you ask them, have you spoken to mom and dad? And the answer is no, because every few seconds there's a new little video or a new little piece of information. And it's so important that we always be mindful and respectful to the fact that we did not grow up with cell phones. Because we didn't grow up with cell phones, my kids laugh at me when I share with them that I was 18 years old when I got my first cell phone. And the only reason I got a cell phone is I went to study at university, which was about 600 kilometers from home. So I had to have some way to keep contact with my mom and my dad. And in that way of keeping contact, I'm speaking about SMS. Yes. And then we've service here where we can send them an SMS that says, please call me, but it's free of charge, so that my parents could phone me. That was normally saying, you know what, I've run out of money, or I need some help, or whatever.
You need to top up, need credit.
So it's completely, it was a cell phone, but it's not, these kids don't know what a cell phone was intended for originally. And then Facebook, I think, changed quite a lot of things in 2007. Obviously, we had the BBMs and Blackberries and stuff. But in 2007, in our country, in any case, in South Africa, most of us got Facebook in 2007. And originally that was to check in on friends that you've lost contact with, because we didn't have the way to keep contact. When I speak at the school, a child would say, we moved far, but I've got a child, so I can keep contact with a friend. If we moved far when I was at school, you lost a friend. There was no ways to ever make contact with them again. Now people are having friendships far apart. They're having conversations and relationships with people they haven't met. In South Africa, 35% of all our high school children, age 13 to 18, because in South Africa at 18 you become a grown-up or a major. All minors 13 to 18, 35% of them date somebody that they've never met before in real life. So you're speaking about kids having relationships where they speak about intimate things while they've never met the person. The parents haven't met the person. So they're completely desensitized to what is real and what makes sense. Because the way I do it at a school is I ask them normally, I point to one of the teachers and I always say, I don't know that teacher. What is that teacher to me? And they say, that's a stranger. And I say, okay, would it be okay for me to go and speak to the stranger? No, why not? It's dangerous. They could kidnap you. They could take you. They could steal from you. I said, okay. So if I go and sit next to that stranger, would it be normal then, if you guys already tell me it's dangerous, would it then be normal to actually show them a photo or photos I've taken on my phone? No, you shouldn't do that. I said, okay. How about showing them videos of me, or at least of me dancing? No, you shouldn't do that. That's dangerous. And then I asked them, who's got Instagram? And then they all say Instagram. I said, who's got TikTok? We've got TikTok. I said, okay. So there's about 2 billion strangers that have access to you. And you tell me when I show you the picture in real life, you tell me no. But when I ask you the second question, do you have these things? Then you say yes. And then I ask them, who's going to stop using TikTok tonight? None of them. We're all going to continue. You're all going to continue to use it, but it is the same as taking a video of myself dancing, sitting next to one stranger and showing that to them. So the one stranger, you guys say, no ways. But the 2 billion strangers I can't see seem completely safe. And then I explain to them, kids, where do you think these adults get to you? How do you think they get hold of you? No, I said, okay, your school is trying to sell the school. So the school puts up a netball or a hockey or a tennis or a athletics photo. Who likes that photo? Not me, not you, their parents and the kids themselves, because they're in the photo. Now I only have to check who's liked this photo. And now I start going down the list. And there's always one or two, because I do this at schools live so they can see it happen in real time. That child's profile is not protected. That child's profile is not protected. And then I say, see how easy it is. And now with AI, I just need a photo. I don't even need a child to fall for my charm or my sweet words or anything. I just need the photo. And then I have a go at the schools. I'm like, here's your Facebook page. This photo was taken from your Facebook page. I didn't have to guess what your children look like. You're literally showing us pictures of the kids, and then I show them how that goes. So these kids have been completely desensitized to what is right and what's wrong. They've got no idea the dangers that they can get into. But then we've got a massive issue and problem with parenting, because why are parents allowing their kids? I don't know all the countries in the world, their average, but in South Africa, we speak about an average of 9.2 hours per day that a child spends on their cell phone.
How many hours, sorry?
9.2 hours per day. So that works out to 4.6 months of the year that a child is on their phone. That's no sleep. That's a third of your year, more than a third of your year. No sleep, no food, no activities, no schooling, just on a cell phone. I spoke to 10 and 11-year-olds this morning. The school invited me because the kids were practicing TikTok trends at the school.
Okay.
And only 10% of them have a bedtime. The other 90%, the parents are telling them, you are old enough at 10, 11 to know when you are tired and when you should go to sleep, with their cell phone in the room. That is absolutely ridiculous.
I don't even think adults can do that. I can't even do that. I know at night I should be sleeping. I know I should be in my bed, but I'm still maybe watching a program just another 20 minutes. And I'm an adult, and I find it difficult to regulate my own sleep.
So what you said is actually the reason. So first thing needs to happen is mom and dad needs to change their habits. And once they change their habits, they can expect their kids to change their habits. So in what I've done on my phone, because it's the same as you, I've realized a while ago, listen, you preach this, but then I have a soft spot for LinkedIn, and I've got a soft spot for X. And then I get to a point, and then I'm like, okay, you're actually being silly now. You should have gone to bed. So I've made my phone at 10 p.m. at night, my phone goes black and white. So I sit and work quite late every night, and then normally from 9:30 to 10 o'clock is my me time. And then at 10 o'clock, I start winding down to go to sleep. And now my phone goes black and white. And that's not fun to watch stuff in black and white. So I probably spend about 5 minutes on my phone still, and then I put it down. And then I'm done. Except obviously if there's a crisis or something. But what you said is so important. So we know we old enough to realize, listen, we've fallen into the same trap. But because we're old enough, we know we need to make a change. The kids don't realize that. So they have chats. I remember we infiltrated a school's one WhatsApp group. A parent asked me to assist. The kids were speaking to each other at 2 o'clock in the morning on a WhatsApp group of the school.
My goodness.
That's not healthy. And obviously the things that they start sharing after midnight are nothing short of completely shocking. The content that they're watching, and a few years ago, we were mostly concerned about pornography because that's what the kids were watching. And that was the one bad thing that they were watching. That's not the only concern we've got anymore. Now they are watching weird stuff on a TikTok, Instagram, and all of that. And it's not, we as parents need to take the first step. I think that's very important. So listen, I know I've been mirroring the wrong information or the wrong image or the wrong example. I need you to understand that I've been wrong, and I was not wrong on purpose. I also fell for all the lights and the stuff, but now I want to be better, and I want you guys to be better because I've learned that what I'm doing is damaging. The long-term effect of that damage, I think we're going to see a generation as we go forward that would have very little interaction skills, very little communication skills, very little critical thinking skills. And we will see that we won't feel it in the beginning because AI will kind of step in, but we're going to see that. We're going to see in the way that kids act. I don't know on your side, but the kids don't have manners anymore. They don't have respect anymore. They don't have the same kind of feeling towards, listen, I'm now being wrong. I'm being disrespectful. A grown-up is speaking. I need to be quiet. And in our country, the big concern is they're pushing a lot of children's rights, which we fight for every day.
Yep.
But if you now only give these kids the word children's rights without responsibilities and without the fact that there's so much more to it than just the child's got a voice and the child's got a right, we're creating a dangerous generation.
I mean, they say when I was young, we not only, I suppose, respected our parents, but fathers in particular, we feared our dads, we were scared of them. Now they're not, so they just answer back. There seems to be a very lack of consequence. And I know people say, oh, your child should never fear you. But if we look at a lot of the millennials in the generation, when you speak to them, they say that it didn't really do them any harm because you knew not to say things to your dad, answer back and tell them. I mean, you're right, they can be very, very cheeky. I'm constantly trying to teach my daughter about answering back because we'll say something and then, like, her dad will say something and she'll say something back. And then her dad will say, yeah, but you can't say that. And then she'll say, yeah, but there's always like a rebuttal. And I'm always saying to her, you're answering back. She's like, I'm not, I'm just speaking. And I'm like, oh.
So,
but I think it's very difficult, and it's difficult with, like you're saying, the social medias and the TikToks. My daughter, when she was 4, my mum told me this. She picked up my mum's phone and she went onto the camera, and my mum was like, "What are you doing?" And she was like, "I'm making TikToks." And it's like, where did she even like how? Because and it's crazy. I mean, I have a sort of post scheduled for tomorrow. I was on my phone, I was on TikTok, and a video came up that, I mean, my TikTok is generally what I would consider pretty clean because I've been on it for a while. The algorithm's all like, at the minute it's all Christmas food and all that kind of what you would call like mum stuff. And a video came up that I didn't like, and I was like, right, report. So I reported it, and then it says, do you want to turn on restricted mode? And I was like, oh, that's quite interesting. I was like, yes. It's like, what do you want to restrict? And I clicked on violence, nudity, clicked on them. I was like, I don't want to see that. So I clicked on them all, and then all of a sudden the search bar disappeared. And I was like, oh, that must be what the restricted mode is. Like, it doesn't let you search, so you can't go off and do your own thing. But what happened next was really, really interesting, because it was like my feed disappeared and it was replaced by the worst content you could ever imagine. I tried to do a post and I screenshotted some of it for LinkedIn, but LinkedIn had said, look, you can't put that up, so it kind of removed the post. But it was pictures, it was Bonnie Blue, it was violence, it was like deformed people in third world countries. It was a suicide bridge where it had pictures of dogs jumping off it. I just started getting shown the weirdest content, and I never saw that on my TikTok. But yeah, when I went restricted, it got a lot worse. But that may bring parents into a false sense of security. They just tap the restricted and the privacy, and there you go, you're good to go. You'll be, but it could actually be worse.
Yes, you're 100% correct. So what we see, we see it in South Africa, and then I go and check out the international trends, and it's pretty much the same all over. Our parents want to do the bare minimum. So they install some kind of an app, a family link or something. And then they kind of sit back and they say, don't worry, we've got this covered. And then I show them at Parent Talks how that gets bypassed. I show it to them, real life. I go on, I show them that's how you bypass it. That's the way it works. You've allowed, and I'm going to use the game Candy Crush as an example. You've allowed Candy Crush. There's nothing wrong with Candy Crush. But now to earn more gems in Candy Crush, I must watch ads. The ads aren't. And some of those ads are ridiculous. I showed them the stripper game. And I mean, now you have an 8-year-old playing Candy Crush, which is a game that's acceptable, but watching a in-app advertisement just to get gems, and that's then this stripper game, and this child doesn't need to download the game. You can play a shortened version of the game as part of the advertisement. And one of the things you can choose eventually is taking off her top or taking off her bottoms. And there's so many examples of that. So we do, unfortunately, as parents, have this false idea of we're protecting them when we're actually not. And then we're in denial as well. So I know that, and again, I'm a father myself, and I've got 2 teenagers. So you speak to your kids and you warn them about the dangers and the people trying to DM them. But once that, I always say the Australian surfer with the blonde hair and the blue eyes, the 15-year-old that doesn't exist, profile picture sends this and sends this message, and then they still it's lekker. It's a good feeling. Lekker in South Africa means a good feeling, a great feeling. That this profile pic told you're pretty. Who doesn't want to hear they look good, or they look pretty, or they've got a nice smile? And it's not unsafe, Dad. It's somebody that looks my age. I can warn you 400, 500, 600 times, but once that starts happening, you fall into that trap where you think you're speaking to somebody your age, they're giving you all the compliments in the world, and the only thing they want is they want you without your clothing, or at least enough of your body if they can use AI, so that they can try and extort more from you. And because you've now made a mistake, very few of these kids then go to mom and dad and said, Mom, Dad, you know what you've been warning me against for the last 2-3 years? I fell for that. I made the mistake. Please don't be upset and now help me. They don't. Now they fall into the trap of sending money. In South Africa, we've got what you call cash send. So you can send somebody cash from a card, so it doesn't have an account, so there's no way to trace it. Same way that they use Bitcoin and so forth. It's the same kind of idea. It's just it is a cash. And our kids and our parents don't know that, and our parents are in complete denial. My kid would never. I love it when they tell me that. My child would never. I've told them that, and they would never. And then I have to unfortunately show them what their never child has done, and how they were caught, and how they were manipulated. Like, I feel sorry for them. But now we need to be better, because the problem is, and I've seen this time and time again, we go to the process, we open up a criminal case. This old gentleman, who's eventually turns up to be 55, 65, 70 years old. But now, even though we've shown it to them, and we've shown them that this is a grown-up, we've shown them this is not a real person, the profile picture is fake. Once they get into trouble anywhere, that entire Stockholm syndrome, they go back, that trauma bond, they go back to that person and say, I know you didn't mean it in a bad way. And now they start feeling sorry for this person that is now, they've got open up a criminal case against. And the problem is that when they feel sorry for them, it's very difficult to move forward. We had a case where the young lady sent quite a lot of photos and videos to a gentleman. And the gentleman then, I mean, it stopped. We stopped everything. We opened up a criminal case. Investigations were underway. And then she reached out to him to ask him if somebody's knocked on his door. So, and then she said to him, she doesn't have airtime or data. So he sent her data to further communicate. Now they were communicating on, they then moved to Discord. So they just moving or forum hopping between the different apps or the different social media applications or whatever you want to call it. We need to make sure that there's a much more public outcry and a public information and publicly made available stats that are real, that we can use. Not the other day, somebody in our country said there's about 50,000 kids that have been victims on WhatsApp communities. And I took the numbers and I showed my staff why that was not a very intelligent way to approach that. Because we've got about 20, 21, 22, 23 million children in South Africa. 30,000 on that big number is such a small percentage that it doesn't seem like a problem. The number was wrong. It sounds impressive, 30,000, but when you break 30,000 over millions down, it's a very small number. So we need to make sure that when we speak and we have opportunities to speak publicly, that we have the correct information, the correct stats, so that parents can realize there's a problem. I don't know where you are, but yeah, we find that parents only start getting interested in the protection of their children once their children have already done something wrong. So it's always reactive. My child said, how do we stop this in future? My child has been bullied. How do we stop it in future? And then all these parents want to open up their own anti-bullying organizations and their cyber-bullying, and that's fantastic. But what happened when we was telling you, let's prevent this? Then everybody, you know what? Not now. We don't have the time. We don't have the this. Well, now you're going to spend a lot of time with your child in trouble, needing therapy, needing assistance, now having trauma because of that, always checking over the shoulder, because once you've got somebody stalking you on one of the social media apps and you 10, 11, 12 years old, you're looking over your shoulder all the time. Because the way that they manipulate your mind is different from when somebody, I mean, I'm sure with your work, you've had threats as well. We do get threats sometimes. And I sleep okay at night because it's not that easy to just do something. But to a 10, 11, 12-year-old, their world doesn't work like our worlds. Their world is not formed yet. It's completely different. And I think it's important that we do start a massive focus on prevention. We can no longer act only in reaction. We can no longer only start worrying about little girls when a girl has been hurt or has sent nudes or has made videos. We cannot only worry about young boys after the boy has taken his life, etc. We need to make sure that we at the forefront, that we have these open, honest conversations like the podcast that you do, the conversations that you have. That's amazing. It needs to always be we need to be proactive. We need to make sure that if information is available, and then there needs to be buy-in, not financially, but buy-in from government. So government must force the schools to have these conversations. They must vet the people that have the conversations, because sometimes, I always laugh. I always talk about in South Africa, I'll talk about the old ladies that are 55, 60 years old, that are now done with work and all of that. They then go to a school and they tell the kids, you should not be on Instagram. That's naughty. That doesn't work. You need to tell them about the documentary that's out there. So I watched one the other day of an American couple where if you look at their Instagram, they were the happiest couple alive. They wanted to be an Insta couple. And then he eventually murdered them. And nobody says so. You don't just go from happy and smiling to murder. No, they were only happy on camera. And our kids are falling for that trap, where our kids think this world is perfect because everybody's happy all the time. Isn't it amazing? Everybody's just happy all the time. Everything is great. It's only smiles. Everybody does well. Everybody wins awards. But
I'm constantly telling my daughter when she watches YouTube videos and things, I'm like, you do know that the longer you spend on YouTube, you're just making someone else money. I was like, they make videos to try and get you to watch them, and the longer you watch, the more money you make. And I was like, so most of the things you see online, and on YouTube and things, I says it's not real. I says it's like when she's got like a little kids camera and she doesn't even like do anything with it. It records and then like delete to free up space, but she sits and like thinks she's making all these YouTube videos. She's like, I'm making a YouTube video, and I'm like, all right, okay. And she's like showing her wee toys and things, and that's what I'm trying to explain to her, that people are only filming the sort of happy parts. But this is one of the reasons why we started Kids in Cyber in the first place, because all this information, and usually like most go to academy schools, we're looking at the teenagers, but with the statistics, 7-year-olds, 6-year-olds, they're online and they're doing things a lot younger, but yet there's no really education or focus of education in that space. It's still, let's focus on maths and let's focus on English, and big digital literacy drives, literacy drives at school. It's like reading and let's have reading days, but there's no digital literacy. And when I had a meeting with the Scottish Government, they had said that a lot of schools do less than 10 hours a year on digital literacy. And I'm like, children are in school 6 hours a day. 6 hours a day for a year. Well, not a whole year, but for the majority of the year. But yet less than 10 hours is spent on the very thing that they're going to be looking for jobs in. They are working with all the time at home. They're on phones and that. And this is why we've started putting together, we've been building a platform for schools so that schools could focus on the things for digital literacy that matter the most and be able to deliver them without trying to lesson plan, trying to fact check, look up things. We've actually got a book coming out in a couple of months. It's called Riley's First Console, and the concept is about social engineering, but it's aimed at primary 6 to primary 7, and it's about a little girl and she gets a console for her first birthday and she plays online and she starts to meet this friend, Emma. And Emma wants to know everything about her. What school do you go to? And she's like, oh, I've made a new wee friend. Yeah. So we're trying to create content that is more engaging for children, with characters and learning through the character themselves. Because sometimes I think when, especially younger children, teachers are trying to teach off of very formal documentation. Like when the police used to come into school when you were young, saying, don't do that and don't do this. And you would sit there and you would be like, oh, is it lunchtime yet?
Well, exactly. Exactly that. So that's why I think it's so important that when we speak stats, that we never lie. We don't lie about them making them more than what they are, but we never ever try and dumb them down, because then it doesn't seem that way. So and I mean, 10 hours a year is a lot in terms of, it's not enough. but I think schools here do even less than 10 hours a year. But it's because when we speak about small numbers, which sound big, but when you really sit down, just do the maths, and you realize it's actually a very small number, then we start realizing that that's why they don't give it the attention. Because if we say, I mean, we were looking at stats at the end of 2024, and the available stats in South Africa was that 20% of kids have been cyberbullied. And then a teacher or a principal wouldn't do a lot about it because it's a fifth of the it's only a fifth of the kids. It's only 20%. And then they always used to tell me it's the few troublemakers. So we then went to schools. We saw about 1 million kids. And we then brought out our own stats. And our stats said 89% of children have been cyberbullied. Now a principal says to me, okay, but we need to change this. Same principal. We need to step up. Yes, because you were lied about the numbers. And I was explaining, I did a TV interview on one of our TV channels the other day on a CSAM case. And I remember they took the video and they put it on YouTube. And one random person then commented on the video saying, that guy, which is me, probably has eaten quite a lot of kids because he's so big. And I remember using that as an example now, as that's me. I've been cyberbullied. It didn't affect me. It had no impact on me. But the reality is that is a form of cyberbullying. So when we now start telling kids, no, but that's not cyberbullying, that's when we chase the 20% narrative, where it's not really a big problem. But it is a big problem because every child, 89% means out of every 100, only 11 have escaped. And I still think that's not true. I think every single child at some stage gets cyberbullied. We that work in public spaces, we're going to get cyberbullied. That's part of the job. You're going to get cyberbullied. Somebody's going to say something about your body size, your hair color, you're a lady, so your makeup. For me, it's always about size and stuff. The fact that I do strongman and stuff to illustrate to kids why they have to ask for help, because then it doesn't matter how big your problem is, because you can get somebody to help you. And that's what I do. I literally pull vehicles to show that. And now I get bullied. But I mean, if I didn't look like this, I wouldn't be able to pull a vehicle. So it can't affect me. But I have been a victim of cyberbullying. That's why cyberbullying needs to stop, because nobody is escaping that. So a question I ask at schools: who's been called too short before? And then you see a few hands. And I say, okay, who's been called too tall before? And then I see more hands. And then we ask, who's been called stupid before? Great. Who's been called too clever? Hands. And then I go from who's been body shamed, who's been called fat, who's been called too thin. So I go through about 5 or 6 different examples of extremes. And by the end of it, I show them that everybody at some stage has somebody that they actually also don't really like, have something negative said about them by somebody that they actually don't really necessarily like. That means I am always going to be spoken about, especially in today's age, because today, in our times, I can't speak on your side, but in my time as a child, we had fun within our friendship group. We didn't really go out and speak about the other friendship groups. But because of social media, now this girl that I don't know has 1,000 followers on Instagram, and that's not acceptable because she's not as nice as she's portraying to be. Now we're having a friendship gossip session about a girl none of us know. None of them know her, but they've got something to say because of her social media presence. And then you start adding the different things that kids do on social media. Some kids, I mean, the other day we had a child in one of the schools that decided she's a wolf. So she started, her YouTube channel is about her in her wolf state. So she's howling a lot, and she's crawling around, and she's hunting, and she's made videos of that. So that girl then gets teased at school for those decisions. which then turns around that she starts making videos of them and telling them how she would hunt them and how she would hurt them. And while all of this is going on, nobody's ever sat with the girl and asked, what's going on? What's happening in your world? When did you make a decision to become a wolf? Has mom and dad now accepted that you a wolf? Those conversations don't take place because now, I don't know, I see the world's gotten very sensitive. Now everybody's kind of sensitive. So now we're not asking those questions. We're leaving a child that's hurt and broken, and we're not guiding her. I'm not saying she shouldn't be a wolf if that's what she wants to be. I'm saying somebody needs to have a conversation with her. Do I agree with the fact that kids can be wolves? No, I don't, but that's my opinion. And I'm comfortable that a lot of parents don't agree with me, and I'm comfortable with that. But we still need to make sure, because a wolf is a dangerous animal. It shouldn't be in a classroom with other kids. I once spoke at a school, and then the teacher stopped me after a while, and she said, we just need to wait. The one girl is a cat, and she needs to go to the litter box. And I was like, what are you doing?
That should not be allowed to happen in schools. Definitely not.
And I can't now go and say she's right or wrong, because that's not my job. My job in that moment is to educate the kids on bullying, cyberbullying, AI, social media. But now we have that happening. Now we've got a child that's seeing that this is happening. And while seeing this is happening, is not in a good headspace at home. Parents are getting divorced. There's fighting at home. You name it. It could be many things. And because that's now happening, I'm open to outside influence, which is not different from what we had. When I was a youngster, the outside influence was just limited to normally alcohol, drugs, cigarettes. And then obviously, we had teenage pregnancies. In South Africa in 2020, we had 688 births registered from 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds. 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds giving birth. Then you go back and you go, in South Africa, the average age of getting addicted to pornography online is 9 years old. You said it earlier, that's 9-year-olds being desensitized, obviously being raped, but in some instances, their parents themselves played a role, not in being raped, that's wrong, that's illegal, that's a crime, but they played a role in making the child accessible to the perpetrator. Then in South Africa, the major concern group if it comes to sexting is 10 to 13. But that's only because of the high poverty levels. A lot of kids younger don't have access to cell phones. Our highest rise, however, year on year is from the 6 to 10-year-old group, which you also alluded to earlier. That is a concern because the 6-year-old, when I was 6 and when my kids were 6, I didn't know anything at 6. My kids knew a little more than I did, but also very limited because they didn't have cell phones at 6 yet. Now we've got 6-year-olds sexting. How did we get that far? Because our parents are uneducated. Our parents are busy trying to survive. Our parents are in denial, because that is a massive concern for me. It's a complete denial. And then our parents now want to go on. I heard this term a few weeks ago and I was a little shocked. Our parents apparently want to grown up children. So they're not grown-ups, they're children, but they are treated like grown-up children.
Yeah, I think I wrote a post about that the other day, Dave, about my daughter. She was saying, she was going back to school and I was like, what kind of bag do you want? And she was like, I want a bluey bag. And I'm like, no, bluey's for babies. Because you see so many young kids now and they seem so put together, like many adults. But my daughter is still very much climbing on top of the shelves at the shop and doing all the things. I'm like, get down, stop doing that. She's still very much a child. But because a lot of other kids seem so grown up, Papa seems very immature compared to them. And that's when I start to think, oh, do you know, I shouldn't be doing that. But I've realised the time, so we've just run a little bit over, but it would be good to have another conversation with yourself, because obviously it's been really good and there's a lot more that we could say on this subject. but I'm aware of the time and we kind of started a little bit late. But if you're interested, it would be very good to have a part 2 of this discussion.
Thank you so much for allowing us to have this conversation. We do look forward to sharing more in the future, and well done on creating a platform where these kinds of conversations can be had. I think what's important for people that view this to know is you didn't limit me before the time with, we shouldn't speak about this and we shouldn't, not, I wouldn't have said yes then in any case, but a lot of the times people want to limit what we can speak about because they don't want to have an honest, proper conversation. So I really want to thank you for allowing an open discussion, and I do hope that if we even touch only one life of a child or a parent that and one child, then I know we at least have started something, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it would definitely be good to have a conversation again, because there is a lot that we haven't even touched on right now. But no, that's fine, because it's been really insightful, because we don't. It's good to hear all the different perspectives from people that are in different lines of work. Like the last conversation I had with someone who does AI education in schools. With the first conversation was a neuroscientist and a mental health expert, so it was good to see his side of how the people he speaks with and deals with, and how the science backs up a lot of the claims that we see in the newspapers of social media is doing X, Y, Z. So it was good to see from a scientific point of view, is the science there to back up that, or are these just headlines that's like sell the newspapers? So these conversations are really, really good to have, and it's good to speak yourself, because obviously you have a lot of insight, and it'll be good to catch up to see how you're getting on with the mental health side of things. But thank you very much for agreeing to speak with me today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Keep well.